Summer is usually the time the Chinese enjoy the leisure time in the open, just like anywhere else in the world. Except for the masks on some of the faces, people would hardly know that the Chinese have gone through a pandemic over the past few months. Coming out of the shadow of COVID-19, economic recovery has become a top priority. Coupons, tax cuts, and stalls, governments at different levels are trying their best to boost economic activities. But how far away are we from business as usual? And are people ready to come back to normal? Let's check out. 你好，哎，现在的 Compared to before the COVID-19 outbreak, is everything back to normal?
Almost normal, especially evenings. It's quite crowded here.
People feeling confident and secure is what has brought the situation back to normal. But to rebuild confidence takes time. China has been able to do that. And are vendors and customers still worried? Too much contact risks spreading the virus?
Now people feel much more comfortable. I remember in early March, customers were very careful while shopping here.
You mean in March?
Yes, but it's much better now.
The halt caused by the pandemic hit small businesses hard. But the market manager says most vendors have begun to make a profit again. And that is a good start for an even greater recovery.
Please do come again.
Thanks. And later on, we will check in with our guest, Claire, to talk about how the peddler's economy will change the city's landscape and people's lives. Hi, Claire.
Hi,
it's nice to catch up with you.
Good to see
I'm
you.
so glad that it seems a lot of things are coming back to normal.
I know, it feels just like a regular day.
So, Claire, everybody wants to go back to normal. What normal means is that people can go to the streets, go to the restaurants, and also go to different stalls and talk with peddlers and buy things. I know you are very good at that.
Oh, personally, unlike a lot of British people, I've had some experience of working on 2 market stalls. So in Britain, it's quite a middle class occupation. It's very competitive.
Middle class, not lower class?
Absolutely middle class, because people are selling things to people with disposable income who want to buy something a bit special, a bit unique. Not the sort of ubiquitous things you get in a multinational, but maybe the artisan cake, the smelly candle, the nice necklace, some product which differentiates itself.
But do you have this kind of same experience here? Differentiated products sold at markets?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chinese are very good business people.
In what sense?
Well, I think they're very good at closing the deal.
Okay.
You know, come and taste, come and try, come and see.
Yeah.
And also, China it's a country of craftspeople. And people make there's still skill sets in China which aren't so common in other countries. People can make very beautiful jewelry. I saw another friend, she was selling a yak's milk soap. So beautiful soap from Tibet. And it had very beautiful packaging. Yeah, and also I like the story.
But I guess those kind of businesses were interrupted because of COVID. That's why people want to come back to this kind of life.
So yeah, that's so true. People, they don't just want to buy something. They just don't want to go online. They want the social experience that shopping on a market stall can afford. They want to know the story behind the product.
But commercially, do you think selling online is the same as selling those stuff on the street?
I think it's a totally different experience. I think 2D is very efficient, right? So your box is, you're done, and it arrives. But it's not fun. When you go to the market,
do you mean for sellers or do you mean for buyers? For both.
I think people, particularly post-COVID, post-lockdown, people really appreciate people.
Yeah.
They want the
contact with people.
They want the contact. They want the content.
Connection.
They want the connection. Right. They want the story behind the product. And also they want a more equitable society. They want to appreciate the small business person who might be tomorrow's big business person. You think of someone like Li Ka-shing. He started off selling plastic flowers. Marks and Spencer's started off selling shoelaces on a market stall and became Britain's biggest retailer. Or Marriott Hotels, Bill Marriott, they were a sheep farmer who started off selling root beer in Washington, D.C. and creates this whole hotel chain.
So great businessmen can start very small.
Great businessmen. If you can sell on the street, that is a ready-made focus group. So multinational companies like Unilever, who sell a lot of products in a shop, they have real people focus groups inside the company to give them feedback on the product. If you sell at a market stall, do you want to buy my coffee? Do you want to taste my coffee? Do you want to buy my necklace? Look, it's real jewelry. You know, you can taste, you can see it.
But some of the skills in psychology apply anywhere. You sell those little products on the street, and then you gain experience, and you can grow your business.
That's it. I think that because people are always on their telephone, they lose their ability to really sell. And we all know the best salespeople, whether they're politicians, whether they're in a multinational company, or whether they're on the street selling flowers, they have the same skill set. You know, they make something seem special. They make it seem seductive. You know, these are skills that you can only learn across the street, not on the internet. So I think if you want to hone the skills for a multinational business, you better start on the market.
But also for buyers like you and me, I know I want to embrace that kind of life because you want to talk to people, you want to see different things, maybe with some kind of serendipity sometimes, not just a store that you know very well.
I like that word, serendipity or yuanfeng. Maybe you'll meet somebody who said,
yeah,
actually, I really would like to buy that, but I need it in this color. And suddenly you'll get a new idea, a new concept, because you are receiving immediate feedback from the consumer. And the best sellers are the ones who follow the consumer taste quickly. And there's no quicker feedback than the feedback you're getting on the market. If no one's coming to your stall, I got to change my product. And I think too many multinational companies are insulated from the reality.
It's kind of communication.
It's communication, and it's constant sales improvement, and that's how you move up the curve. But the buyer has to know that the product is safe, and that's why I think there can be a win-win between the street seller and the government. If the government gives a license to the seller to say, this cookie is cooked in a clean kitchen, then I feel safe tasting that cookie.
I think this is important because recently there have been arguments about what is the regulator's role in this, because the government wants to boost the sector, wants to boost the store and the peddler's economy. A lot of people become employed in this way because they lost their job during COVID-19. But on the other hand, how do you keep it in order? How do you make sure that the products are clean and safe?
Okay, so this is something that the UK wrestled with.
Yeah.
Because when migrants arrive in the UK, they often really miss a food from home. Or they think that the women in the UK don't dress very well and they could do with a better scarf. So my friend, she was from Sudan, and she had this beautiful jewelry range. And she had to apply for a license in order that she gets the spot on the market for the jeweler. Because what the government's role, the regulator role, is to make sure the market is like a well-laid table. You don't just have all vegetable or all meat or all jewelry or all coffee or all biscuit. You have to have a diversity of dishes for a delicious meal. And the market license needs to be regulated like that. So the market license does two things. Number one, it makes sure that there's not 20 people selling my type of necklace. You only have 2 jewelry sales for a bit of, and it also makes sure that the product is safe.
But that means a lot of extra work for the regulators. They have to be very smart and well informed.
Yeah, the regulator has to be the confidant, the friend, and the mentor of the market seller, not the competitor, the collaborator. Because basically the regulator should be the best seller. because then the regulators become competitive about who has the best market. You know, is the best silk scarf market, is it in Hangzhou or is it in Shanghai?
But
Make it a competition with the regulators.
Is it realistic to have so many resourceful regulators who know different trades in the market and how to regulate, where's the line? That's
You know, one thing I've noticed about China is really good at selling, it's really good at innovating, and it's really good at moving up the value chain.
Why do you say so?
I look at Jack Ma. Right? He starts off as a teacher, he's now dominating online sales. I look at my boss.
So you're saying the Chinese are good at becoming business
China's
people?
so good at selling. They're selling in their sleep. You know, China is really good at selling. I would not like to be on the market stall next to a Chinese because, you know, they're going to have a different supply line. You know, if I'm in London and a Chinese...
They're very flexible and adaptive.
Very flexible, and they're not snobbish. You know, selling, you can't just sit here and go, hey, here's my goods. You have to be here. Here's my goods.
Use your mind. And move a lot.
You have to move a lot. You know, I see your guys on TV. They're very good. You know, they're very animated. And I feel that China's combination of personability. Chinese people are sociable. China's so diverse. You know, is Tibet like Shanghai? It isn't. Is Xinjiang like Guangdong? It isn't. So all you've got to do is create those internal sales line with a high-speed train, and then pop down to the embassy, get the necklaces from the Somali embassy, get the ties from the British embassy. You know, use your embassies as bylines. Everyone needs money today.
In a word, you'd love to see all those businesses come back and becoming successful.
But let the market trader come into the city center. Those market traders are selling China's best
But there is
products.
a dilemma. If they come to the city center, they will bring a lot of troubles to traffic controllers, city councilors, and every government department don't want to see overwhelming crowds in the city center.
I think post-COVID, government departments are going to let necessity be the mother of invention. And I think increasingly bylines have to come from outside the countryside into the epicenter of the city. You have to bring the potentially expensive product. Everyone needs a profit margin, even your government. Everyone needs a profit margin and a different profit margin today. And if you want real competition in multinational companies,
yeah, philosophically, I agree with you. We should all embrace entrepreneurship and innovative people.
Innovative women.
All right.
The best saleswomen are always your women.
All right. Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you very much.
It's been enjoyable. I hope that we will have chances to go to more stalls.
Let's meet at the market stall near CGTN.
Learn how they sell people. Yeah.
I like it.
And in the next segment, we'll continue our talks on how to boost local economies in different parts of China. And in the second part of our show, we will be joined by Professor John Gong from the University of International Business and Economics. He is in Beijing. And Steve Keen, the crowd-funded professor of economics on Pedron, he's in Thailand. And welcome to our discussions. My first question goes to you, John. As we have mentioned in the early part of the interview, markets should be brought back to the city center, as Claire argued. Do you agree with her? What might be the problems that are involved?
Well, I think the vitality of a city, in a sense also the beauty of a city, should also feature something sort of more lively, more reflecting of the common folks' life. And certain, stores or stands that reflect people's life, really getting close to people's life, could be, interesting feature of a city. We don't have to be, always to see everything sort of in glitzy malls and nice stores, sort of catering to the high-end consumer ends. We don't have to be like that. I think many metropolises in the world, cities like New York City, Paris, those big cities, also have their share of something like that, reflecting people's average folks' daily life. And I think this is I would see this as a beauty aspect of a city.
But why some big cities, especially the first-tier cities, still have trouble reconciling with letting vendors come to the streets and maintaining the city clean and orderly?
Well, that's the issue here. I mean, the downside of street stands like that are, the sanitary concerns, making the street clean. I think this is not the reason to negate the existence of these stands. I think the issue is management. How do we actually manage them better, such that they still make the city nice, clean, and tidy, even with some street stands. Catering to tourists, for example, during the day, and at night, some food stands. These things can be, meeting people's needs on one hand, but also making sure that they do not pollute the city streets, they do not inconvenience traffic and pedestrians. Both ends can be achieved, in my opinion.
And Steve, you now are in Thailand. Have Thailand vendors all resumed their streets, businesses already? What are their local troubles?
Oh, it's very much so. I mean, it was for quite some time you wouldn't go to a market, certainly in Bangkok, because there was just a chance of transmission of the virus. But even there, markets started insisting on people wearing masks. They started having alcohol dispensers, cleaning alcohol and so on, temperature checking and all that sort of thing. And now that Thailand has joined China and a couple of other countries in being extremely successful in defeating the virus, then life is returning to normal here. Street vendors are operating everywhere, and people are now very relaxed about the wearing of masks.
And I presume that Thailand actually depended a lot on visitors and those vendors to support the economy. But has the economy come back already?
Not a lot. It has come back to some substantial degree, because even though Thailand relies upon tourists for about overseas tourists for about 15% of its GDP, it still has 85% from local activity, and the government was quite willing to sacrifice that external for the public health benefit and ultimately the economic benefit of destroying the virus very rapidly and actually destroying it, getting to the stage where there are no domestic cases. There hasn't been a domestic transmission case now in Thailand for over 2 weeks. So in that sense, I think they've been extremely successful. And it was a cost they were willing to pay. The people agreed with it, and I think it's been extremely successful. And people's feelings here are just so much better than in a country where you're still worried you might get the disease from bumping into a random person. So it's been worth the cost, I think all Thais would agree.
So John, if Thailand can rely on its own consumers for 80% of the traffic, why can China step up efforts to boost those retail businesses on the streets? Or can it provide enough jobs as a result of the loss of jobs because of COVID-19?
Yeah, well, I think Thailand and China are a little bit different. I think the extent of the lower strata of the society, people really depending on a lifestyle like this, going out to the streets to sell things, really is driven by the level of economic development. In general, I would say that for more advanced economies, you will see less of a population relying on that kind of lifestyle, but less developed countries, probably, you see larger population. And that, boils down to the livelihood of these people. I think it's extremely important. But in China's case, I think, as Premier Li has alluded to during the 2 sessions, there is still a fairly large percentage of the population that have relatively, very low income. People, need to make a living out of this. So I think, from the city management perspective, from the city governance perspective, I think we should be recognizant of the fact that there is a certain percentage of people, no matter how small that is, that really, depends on a livelihood of this kind. So I think, we really need to go out of a way.
Do you have an estimate of numbers? How many people actually dependent on this kind of business? And who are they? Are they those who lost the jobs because of COVID-19, hit on manufacturing services, or they are unemployed all the time?
Well, I don't have exact numbers. I suspect that they're not entirely from the unemployment outcome because of the coronavirus. I think there is, before that, even before the coronavirus, there is still such a quite sizable percentage of the population that depends on a lifestyle like this. You know, these are the people, for example, in Beijing's case, they are probably coming from another province. They are living on the outskirts of the city, and they are, you know, renting those sort of low-end housing. They are basically don't have a regular job. They, you know, make a living based on odd-time jobs or street vending. I think it depends on, you know, the location. In big cities, in Shanghai, in Beijing, for example, there's probably less percentage of people like that. But in some less well-off provinces, people probably have seen a larger percentage of that.
So you think it makes sense to have differentiated policies in different cities because of their sizes and their functions?
Absolutely. I think Premier Li made a very good example of the city of Chengdu, right? Chengdu is the capital of Sichuan province. I would argue that in Sichuan province, there's quite a fairly large percentage of people, you know, who are relatively poor, and the city offering an opportunity like this solves a lot of employment jobs for these people. They are living on outskirts of Chengdu. You know, they are poor. They need some incomes, basically, right? So they go to city and they, you know, he mentioned 100,000 people. That's a lot of people, right? I mean, you multiply 3 to 5, you know, for a family. That's you know, almost like 500,000 people affected by this. So it's a quite sizable population.
And Steve, does the Thailand government provide similar aid or help packages for Thailand retailers and businesses? Because I understand they have been heavily hit by COVID-19 as they rely so much on people coming from outside in.
Yeah, they have done that, and I think they also recognise the macroeconomic role of these street vendors as well, which I think we should inject into the discussion here. We tend to talk about them being low-income earners and look at the effect on city aesthetics and so on. I think they play a fundamental role in Asian cultures in general in enabling rents to be lower. Because if you have street vendors with cheap food, you can't have expensive restaurants, you can't have high rents, and that means you get a control on the level of rentier income, which is very high in America and Europe, and that makes Asia more competitive in general. So I think they have a lot of very useful functional roles in Asian society, and I think the Thais have a good recognition of that.
But don't you think that will drive those businesses who pay rents in shops and big stores out of business? And you think that's a good thing?
They can't pay. No, I think it drives the landlords out of business, and that's a good thing.
Okay.
If you have street vendors who don't pay rent, then restaurateurs can't pay a high rent, and that restrains rental income. And that is one thing which David Ricardo was actually trying to achieve way back in his principles of political economy and taxation. He thought the more money you can get away from landlords and give to capitalists, the better your economy will be. And I think Ricardo was right on that point.
So, John, this is actually in line with the Chinese government thinking. Tax cuts, lower rent for businesses, and it will make the playing field more level.
Right. Well, I mean, I think President Xi has a very strong opinion about this. You know, he is very concerned about the livelihood of people of the poor, you know, the less privileged. You know, poverty eradication is very much high on his agenda. So I think this actually, in my opinion, fits his agenda. That you know, somehow we can create these jobs, solve some problems for these people. Instead of just giving them handouts. I think this is probably more of a sustainable way of poverty eradication. And also want to make a point that, you know, how do we actually view the advancement, development, and the beauty of a city, right? It's not just all about, you know, really clean and tidy streets, glitzy office buildings, shopping malls. It's not just about that. I think there's another side of a city that can also be beautiful, that may not be so tidy, may not be so clean maybe during the day. A little bit of a boisterousness, a little bit of noise. It's actually, you know, make the city more interesting.
But you are asking the regulators to even better and smarter job of drawing a line. Where is chaos, whereas maintain measured order.
Well, I think this is an issue of management. I mean, how do you actually view from a city governance perspective? I mean, there are cities that can do a very good job. For example, I know in New York City, for example, during the weekends, there are this place that people can go and for a little fair, local fair, for example. It doesn't have to be going on every day, maybe on the weekends in a concentrated place. You can actually make it interesting while also make it clean and tight at the same time. It doesn't have to be in conflict.
And also, Steve, earlier when I talked with Claire, another guest of our program, she said that actually those kind of retail businesses will hone the skills of the people who really want to become a businessman, and some of them become very successful in the end. It is a training ground for businesses.
It is, and I think it's also said it has decent macroeconomic roles and provides part of the vitality for a culture as well. The people actually search these out. You go, you have lunch, or you go to have lunch, and your thought is, where's the most interesting street vendor? So there's an organic role of these institutions in Asian societies, which should not be ignored. You'd end up with a much more sterile and actually much more less competitive economy if you got rid of them. And a lot of them, as you say, make very decent income indeed.
And John, we may not have a crystal ball, but to what extent do you think the easing on the street vendors will boost the economy, and what kind of a job increase will that bring about?
The impact is always positive. I think it contributes to more GDP, for example, that may not be captured officially. It creates jobs. It raises people's incomes. It's all on the positive side. The negative side is really sort of on the environment side, maybe on the people's utility with respect to the city life that may be a little bit affected. So these are the things that are very difficult to quantify. But let me also make a very interesting, very final point about this issue. It is never a to be or not to be question, in my opinion. It's not an if question. I think to some extent every city should have a fair share of something like this. Okay, it's the issue of how you actually do it, right? You want to strike a balance. You want to create jobs and create incomes for these people at the same time, not really impairing people's quality of life. So it's really a trade-off here. I think we should do that, but we should do it better and smarter.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Be inventive and be smart for retailers as well as regulators. Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Steve. You've been watching Dialogue here on CGTN. I'm Joe in Beijing. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.